Greetings from the Caribbean Climate Network, 350.org. You have arrived at the Caribbean Climate Network Climate Chats, and we're talking about climate change in our region. It's the change in climate due to fossil fuel emissions. It's real and it's affecting our ocean, air, land, and even our culture. We're here today with Amira from Puerto Rico. Amira, you want to say hi?
Hi, thank you, Katrina, for holding this podcast.
Thank you for all your support in making this podcast a reality. And today we're talking about something that we're both very, very focused on, which is our ocean and climate. So I was telling you just before that my parents visited the east coast of Trinidad. And the amount of sargassum, it's like mountains of sargassum. If there were turtles nesting on those beaches, they definitely can't get out of their sand. It smells really bad. Like, people don't realize that is tied to climate change. What do you think about that?
Definitely. And in fact, a few weeks ago, I saw a news article that this year the Caribbean is expected to have more sargassum than normal because the ocean is so hot and it didn't have enough chance to cool itself during the colder months, if you can say that for our region. That it is expected to have more. And on top of that, we're gonna have El Nino now, which is usually already even higher temperatures for the ocean and the Caribbean. So that will probably mean a huge impact for our tourism industry, for health, for animals, and for us, because who wants to swim in that water? And it's not healthy. Even if you wanted to swim in that, even if you didn't mind the smell, it still causes issues to your skin and other organs. So it's actually dangerous to be there.
Yeah, people don't realize that there's irritation and stuff with the sargassum weeds. And then as you were talking about El Nino plus this extra heat, that is so going to impact our corals. Like coral bleaching, people still don't realize that coral bleaching doesn't mean that the coral is dead, but it means that the coral is stressed out so much that it loses parts of itself that it needs to survive. So yes, there is a point where they can recover, but then if we have an El Nino with this extreme temperature and then on top of that, further heat, further pressures from land, like pollution and stuff like that, the non-climate things are exacerbated by the climate things. So that is one of the things that we really have to think about. And what I worry about is that, we are doing more than what nature can deal with, So how is it in Puerto Rico though?
Well, here, for sargassum, we haven't gotten so much yet, but we are starting to see some at the beach. And the water is already starting to feel warmer than usual when you go in. And for corals, last week, I went snorkeling. I hadn't gone to that beach in specific since August last year, but I went there last week and I saw many dead coral that I have not seen before, and also other species taking over, like soft coral, taking over spaces where brain coral used to be. So that means we're losing a species, and a more resistant ones are taking over, but that means that we have less biodiversity in the ocean. And in that same place nearby, there's this corals where I used to snorkel when I learned to snorkel when I was like 6 years old. And that area has been dead now for years. It started with bleaching, and now it's just turning to stone. There are no corals left. So I can't imagine how the ecosystem is withstanding all this heat.
That's so heartbreaking because I experienced that in Trinidad and Tobago too. Like, but you know, like it's a combination of pressure. It's the temperature, it's the pollution, it's people stepping on the corals and just not knowing how to coexist with the coral and all the other things in our ecosystem. So I worry a lot about how climate is now affecting this rapid decrease in our biodiversity. It's crazy. And the thing is, what people don't realize is that to some people, they say, oh, the ocean is still cold when I'm going into the water, but they don't understand that the amount of heat that is trapped in that ocean, like we are reaching that point where it's not going to be as simple like, oh, I'm going to just keep absorbing the heat and everything will be fine. More heat in the ocean also means stronger hurricanes. People don't realize that's a link. So what do you think about that in terms of disasters?
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary to think that when you go into the water, especially months like July, August, September, when you go in the water and it's warm, it's scary to think that while you're swimming in there, that's the perfect recipe for a major category 4 or 5 hurricane to form easily in hours because there's just so much heat, so much energy trapped in there.
Exactly.
And it like you said, it's a mix of factors. The system is already weak because of boats anchoring where they don't need to, and construction happening where it doesn't need to happen, and people stepping on the reef because there's not enough environmental education in our region, unfortunately, about that. Plus, the climate disaster impacts, making it so much worse. And corals are our first barrier against the same hurricanes that can form in this warm ocean and sea level rise and so many more things. Corals are protecting us from feeling more impact. So if corals disappear, the reality will be so much more different for the entire Caribbean. Like all Caribbean communities will struggle, and daily life will be so different.
Yeah, yeah. People, I think when you're not on an island or not on a coastal community, you kind of feel disconnected to how close nature can get. Like those natural disasters really are affecting us. And I mean, Caribbean countries already have such limited resources and capacity, and we're so vulnerable that when we are hit by these hurricanes, it takes us so long to recover. And even if we recover, we don't ever recover completely, you know? So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from what we've been doing all along and like how we can adapt so that we are prepared better. We can keep our resources, don't lose everything and everyone during one of these climate related disasters. You know, it's a lot about not just education, as well as the governments have that responsibility and the power to make the decisions that are going to protect the people. Because I know that's what we've been talking about all the time. So if you want to follow 350.org and the Caribbean Climate Network with all the work that we've been doing, we want to adapt now to save lives. We want to empower the people of the Caribbean region to, you know, take hold of the resistance that you do have, the resilience that you have in the face of climate change. And well, I see we're at time. So today's episode was about the ocean and climate. Amira, have any last thoughts that you'd like to add?
Just that we need to think every day how much the ocean is doing for us. So we need to do something for the ocean back. And that's fight the climate crisis.
Exactly. So thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned and follow 350.org's Caribbean Climate Network on social media. Bye. See you next episode.